He once said, "I want freedom, not diapers." And with that one sentence, he shattered 3 hearts that hadn't even been born yet. 2 years later, when the office lights went out, when no contract could fill the emptiness inside, he saw them again, the woman who had loved him with everything she had, and the 3 children, with eyes so much like his, it hurt to look at them. This isn't just a story about regret. It's the journey of a man learning how to be a father, a woman learning how to forgive, and 3 children teaching them what love truly means. If you're listening to this, take a moment and stay, because sometimes what we lose is the only thing that can save us. November. It had been raining all week in New York, the kind of cold, heavy rain that felt like the city was trying to wash away something that would never come clean. On the 40th floor of Freeman Capital, yellow light spilled across glass walls. In that room sat Ethan Freeman, 36, the youngest CEO in the company's history, facing the woman he once thought was the calm at the center of his life. Clara Hayes stood there like a crack in a perfect painting. Her beige wool coat was soaked, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. The 2 words that shattered everything. 3 babies. Ethan thought he had misheard. "What did you say?" "Triplets, Ethan. I'm pregnant with 3. A strange silence fell. The rain struck the glass harder, and he could suddenly hear his heartbeat pounding, like it was being forced underwater. In his mind, numbers flashed. Schedules, contracts, costs, responsibilities. Lost freedom, lost control. Everything he feared most. Clara watched as his eyes grew distant. She knew what was happening. The man she loved was crushed between instinct and fear. "Ethan," her voice softened, "you can say anything. That you're scared, that you're not ready. Just please, don't say you choose freedom." He turned away and poured his 3rd glass of scotch, his hand shaking. The amber liquid spilled, staining the table like a faint trace of blood. "You don't understand," his voice cracked. "I know who I'll become if I stay. I'll become him, his father. A celebrated lawyer who died at his desk while 14-year-old Ethan sat at home waiting for a birthday call that never came. A man who had chosen work over everything and left behind a son, convinced that family love always ended in disappointment. Clara stepped forward, but he raised a hand to stop her. 3 children, Clara. Do you even know what that means? It means they'll need a father. It means I'll lose myself. Everything I've built will fall apart. I'll resent them and you, and repeat the same tragedy I swore I'd never repeat." His voice rose, edged with panic. "I can't," he said, eyes bloodshot. "I can't be a father." Clara stood still, something inside her cracked open, a pain so deep that no tears could follow. "Ethan," she whispered, "fear doesn't kill people, but the wrong choice can. You're killing the best part of yourself." But he had already gone to the desk and pulled out a checkbook. His hand trembled as he wrote, pressing hard as if to tear through the paper. "This is for you, for the babies. You'll have everything: a hospital, a school, and a home. Everything except their father." The rip of the check sliced the air like a blade. Clara didn't take it. "Are you trying to buy back your conscience?" "I'm trying to protect them from me." The room turned colder than the rain outside. "Ethan," she said softly, "you're not your father. The very fact that you're afraid of becoming him proves that." But he wasn't listening. He turned toward the window, watching Manhattan blur behind a veil of rain. In the glass reflection, his tears fell unnoticed. Clara took the check, not looking at the numbers, only at the uneven handwriting, shaking from his guilt. She knew this wasn't support. It was goodbye. She walked out of the apartment, shoes soaked, one hand resting on her belly where 3 tiny hearts still beat in rhythm. In the darkness, she whispered to them, "Your father loves you, but he loves in fear. And sometimes, love wrapped in fear is love that can't stay." When the elevator doors closed, Ethan stood by the window, hearing the metallic hiss of the cables. He thought he could hear 3 heartbeats through the rain, small, faint, but so discernible it made him want to scream. Instead, he poured another drink and muttered to himself, "Freedom. You chose freedom." End of 4. But that night, freedom tasted like tears. 3 months later, winter blanketed Manhattan. Ethan Freeman still lived in his vast apartment, so large that his footsteps echoed like they came from another world. He had everything: rising stocks, new contracts, and another business award. Yet every morning, he swore he heard the faint cry of a child somewhere, not loud, not clear, just a ghostly sound trapped in his mind. The doctor said nothing was wrong, but Ethan knew something inside him was broken. At high-rise parties, champagne glasses shimmered with city lights as other men shared stories about their kids. Ethan smiled in all the right places, his throat burning with liquor and regret. One day, his assistant invited him to a charity center opening in Queens. The organizer's name froze him: Clara Hayes. He kept the card silent throughout the whole meeting. Then he tore it apart and threw it away like tearing out a piece of his own heart. Winter dragged on, and Ethan realized freedom had no spring. It only had empty footsteps across cold floors and the lingering scent of whiskey in an unfinished glass. One night, he woke from a nightmare shirt soaked in sweat, breath shaking. In his dream, Clara sat in a small, dim room, surrounded by the sound of crying babies. He called her name, but his voice never reached her. He shot up, opened his laptop, and began to write an email. But his fingers froze. What could he say? "I'm sorry for choosing freedom," or "I regret it." He deleted the words, shut the laptop, and exited the balcony. Manhattan glowed beneath him, veins of gold running through a giant body of steel. But all he felt was cold. Her words echoed in his mind. Fear doesn't kill people, but the wrong choice can. Maybe she was right. Perhaps he was dying slowly, every day, in every dream. Somewhere across the city, in a quiet hospital room in Queens, Clara lay clutching her belly, praying for the 3 tiny lives still fighting inside her. In her pain, she saw him, the man standing between 2 worlds, choosing the one without love. She no longer felt anger, only emptiness. Yet within that emptiness, 3 heartbeats pulsed like God's answer that there was still a reason to live. Ethan didn't know that as he stared into the Manhattan sky. 3 small stars began forming somewhere beyond it. They would grow up in a cramped apartment, but one day, they would be the only light bright enough to reach his soul. For now, he just stood there in the snow and rain, staring at his glass of scotch, whispering the exact words this time, no longer sure. Freedom. Was it worth it? Spring came late to Queens. The rain was scattered, the sky hung low, and the old brick buildings wore stains of time. Inside the cramped kitchen of Murphy's Diner, the scent of hot coffee mixed with frying oil and the laughter of regulars. At the corner counter, Clara Hayes refilled the mugs at table 4, her tired smile never leaving her lips. No one in the diner knew that beneath the worn apron was a life about to come into the world, 3 lives. She'd hidden her pregnancy for 8 months, partly out of fear of losing her job, partly because she didn't want anyone's pity. Her belly was bigger than usual, but with her loose uniform, only the most observant could tell. That morning, the clock struck 6:30 when the first pain hit. It wasn't the usual ache, a deep, gripping pull that spread through her body, as if someone was squeezing her heart. Clara gripped the counter, breathing hard, calming her voice. "It's okay. It's fine," she whispered, pouring coffee for a customer. But when sweat began to trickle down her neck and her vision blurred, she knew she couldn't hide it anymore. Clara, Tess Lopez, her closest co-worker, stared at her. "Oh my God, are you in labor?" Clara forced a shaky smile. "I don't think so. I still have 2 weeks." Then the table beneath her was suddenly wet, her water broke, right there in the middle of the diner. The chatter stopped, customers stood, and Tess yelled for a cab. Clara sank to the floor, clutching her belly, trembling with pain and fear. "No, I have to finish my shift. Rent's due." "Shut up, Hayes," Tess snapped, wrapping her coat around her. "You're about to be a mother, not a waitress." The old cab sped through the slick streets, its horn blaring like a countdown. Clara bit her lip, tears mixing with rain. She thought of Ethan. Where was he now? Tokyo. A boardroom. That same 40th floor, with a half-finished glass of scotch. Did he ever think of her? "No, stop it," she whispered. "Focus on the babies." Mount Sinai Hospital gleamed under harsh white lights, cold, overwhelming. They wheeled her into the emergency room, voices sharp and urgent. Multiple pregnancy, 34 weeks, prep for C-section. In her haze, someone asked, "Where's the father?" The question cut like a blade. She forced a stiff smile. "There isn't one. Just me." Then came the blinding lights, the mechanical sounds, the tearing pain. She floated between life and death until a cry pierced through, then another. First baby girl healthy. Second baby stable. Clara smiled through tears, 2 girls. And then silence. The third, the doctor's voice dropped. "She's not breathing." Clara tried to sit up despite the numbness. "No, save her." Well, she saw a tiny blue-tinged body being carried away, light reflecting off fragile skin. Machines beeped rapidly, then paused, then sped again. Someone shouted, "Heart irregular, umbilical cord around the neck, keep going." And then, a faint cry came through the storm of noise, weak, trembling, but alive. "She's breathing," the doctor exhaled. "But her heart's complicated. It's serious." Clara drifted into darkness, tears spilling even in sleep. When she woke, morning light slipped through hospital blinds. 2 bassinets sat beside her bed, 2 small pink faces sleeping peacefully, Grace and Hope. But the third crib was empty. "Faith's in the NICU," the doctor said. "She has a congenital heart defect. She'll need surgery soon." Clara nodded quietly. Her hand went to her chest, her heart still beat, but it no longer felt whole. A piece lay 3 floors away, inside a fragile baby named Faith. 3 weeks later, Clara left the hospital with 2 of her daughters. Faith stayed behind in an incubator. The bills piled higher than the number Ethan had once written on that goodbye check. The tiny apartment in Jackson Heights was eerily quiet that first night home. 3 borrowed cribs lined the wall, and Clara slept on the floor between them. Every shallow breath made her jolt awake. She slept only minutes at a time. In the morning, Tess knocked on the door with a food bag. "I made extra soup. Don't say no, Hayes." Clara smiled faintly. "Thank you. I'll pay you back." "Pay me by staying alive," Tess said, glancing at the babies. "You're not alone, you know." But Clara knew the most challenging part hadn't even started. When the hospital bill arrived, her hands shook. The number was staggering, more than the check Ethan had written that night. She opened a drawer and took out the check. The ink had blurred from her sweaty palms, the paper worn soft from too many nights of staring at it. She'd sworn never to use it. But the sound of Faith's monitor echoed in her mind, and the doctor's words replayed, "If we don't operate soon, she won't make it." While the twins slept that night, Clara sat at the small table, turned on the lamp, and signed her name on the back of the check. "I'm sorry, my loves," she whispered, "but I have to save your sister." The money went through by morning. The surgery lasted 3 hours. When the doctor finally came out, Clara's vision blurred with exhaustion. "Successful," he said, "but she'll need more surgeries later. Be ready." From that day, her life became a blur of shifts, hospital visits, and prayers. By day, she waited tables at Murphy's Diner. By night, she cleaned offices. At noon, she pumped milk for the hospital. She became a living machine powered by love. The neighbors began to help. Mrs. Chen next door brought food, saying she'd made too much. The servers took turns babysitting when Clara had to visit the hospital. Soon, everyone in the building knew about the triplet mom on the 3rd floor. One evening, Clara sat in the dark, listening to her babies breathe, while rain softly tapped the window. She opened her phone and stared at Faith's photo, tiny, fragile, but clutching a doctor's finger with fierce determination. "You're so strong," she whispered, "just like your father." Then she laughed, a sound caught between irony and ache. "He chose freedom. I chose you. Maybe we each only get to choose one kind of life, huh?" A week later, Faith finally came home. She was so light it felt like holding air. The 3 of them lay side by side, their breaths sinking, 3 heartbeats melting into one rhythm. The small apartment smelled of milk and medicine. But to Clara, it was the scent of life itself. She kissed each tiny forehead. "Grace, you're my strength. Hope, you're the faith I held on to. And Faith, you're my miracle." Across the city, high above Manhattan, Ethan Freeman sat in his glass apartment, watching snow fall against the skyline. He had everything money could buy except the one thing he'd sold away. 3 tiny heartbeats teaching a woman how to breathe again. And he didn't know it yet, but from that night on, those very breaths would begin to pull him back, slowly, gently, from the edge of what he once called freedom. 2 years later, Manhattan was still dazzling, loud, and spinning endlessly. Only Ethan Freeman stood still inside its storm. In the morning, he led board meetings with a calm voice and cold eyes. They called him the Wolf of Wall Street, precise, ruthless, never missing a beat. At noon, he lunched with partners on high floors, laughing at the right moments, speaking just enough. At night, he returned to a luxury apartment overlooking Central Park, where everything was beautiful and lifeless. He lived like a machine programmed to feel nothing. Only sometimes, when the glass of scotch caught the golden glow of the lamp, he would catch his reflection and see himself smile, the same smile his father used to wear. "Just like him," he muttered, and poured another drink. One Friday night, as he was reviewing a contract, Alexa's voice broke the silence. "You have one new notification. Clara Hayes, mother of triplets, featured in Community Stories." Ethan froze. The name hit like a knife turned inward. He hadn't searched for it, saved it, or wanted it yet. Somehow it found him. His hand trembled as he clicked the link. A small local news piece appeared. "Young mother in Queens raises triplets born prematurely without help from their father." Then, beneath the headline was a photo. Clara. She stood before Murphy's diner, wearing a blue uniform, her hair tied back. Beside her were 3 little girls, each different, yet all with the same eyes as his. He couldn't breathe. The photo was grainy, tinged with yellow light, but it didn't matter. He saw everything. The dark-haired one in the middle, steady gaze, Grace, probably. The one smiling shyly, clutching a teddy bear, Hope. And the one in the stroller, cheeks pale, a small medical patch near her nose, Faith. Their names appeared in the caption, and his chest tightened. Triplets, Grace, Hope, and Faith Freeman, the 3 little miracles of Queens. Freeman, his name. He shot to his feet, heart pounding. No one had told her to give them his name, but she had. And somehow, that hurt more than any accusation ever could. His hands shook as he scrolled down. A short video clip played. Clara's voice came through, tired but calm. "Things don't have to be perfect. They have to be loved. We don't have much, but we have each other, and that's enough." He stopped the video halfway through. The office suddenly felt too small to breathe. He stepped out onto the balcony, wind hitting his face. The city roared below, cars, lights, sirens, yet all he heard was the echo of his heart breaking. And for the first time in 2 years, Ethan Freeman cried. Not loud sobs, but silent tears, slow, heavy, falling like stones inside him. He thought of that night in the rain, the check, the words, "I'm protecting them from me." He'd believed it then. Now he knew it was just an excuse to run. He didn't know how long he stood there until his phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. "Mr. Freeman, are you still attending the gala tonight?" He looked at his screen, the name Ethan Freeman glowing there, and suddenly it meant nothing. That night, he didn't go to the gala. He drove to Queens. Queens at night wasn't Manhattan. No blinding lights, no luxury cars, just warm air and the faint smell of street tacos. Ethan parked at the end of a red brick row, across from the glowing sign, Murphy's Diner, open 24 hours. He sat in the car for minutes, watching through the glass. Inside, Clara was cleaning tables. She bent down to pick up a spoon. On the wall behind her hung photos of customers, and among them, he saw the familiar faces of 3 laughing girls. He pressed his hand to the window. It was strange, like touching a world that no longer belonged to him. Around 11, the diner emptied. Clara took off her apron, waved goodbye to Tess, and entered the light rain. Ethan opened the car door, instinctively wanting to call her name, but no sound came. She crossed the street, small under the street lamp glow. A bus whooshed past, wind lifting her hair, and when it moved on, she was gone, swallowed by a narrow alley. He followed slowly, watching her stop at an old brick building and unlock the door to the third floor. A light flickered on, then off. He stayed there for hours, just watching that window. Every time the lamp came on again, he imagined her rocking a child, soothing a cough, or simply sitting alone, breathing through exhaustion. He was still there when she came out holding her children at dawn. He ducked low behind the wheel, watching like a thief. Grace walked ahead, pigtails bouncing, holding a teddy bear. Hope toddled behind. Faith sat in the stroller, a small tube connected to a breathing pouch. Clara leaned down to check it, smiling softly despite the dark circles under her eyes. Ethan's chest tightened painfully. He wanted to step out, to say, "It's me." But then the youngest girl, Faith, turned her head. Her eyes, fragile yet impossibly clear, brushed over him. That one fleeting glance told him everything. They didn't know who he was, and maybe they didn't need to. He started the engine, drove off, then stopped again a few blocks away. In the rearview mirror, he saw Clara disappear into the crowd, 3 small figures, 3 steady heartbeats, glowing like tiny lights in the city rain. That night, he hired a private investigator. "I want to know everything about them," he said. "Address, work, school, hospitals, everything." The man hesitated. "May I ask why?" Ethan answered, "Because I lost them, and I need to know how they're living now." A week later, the file arrived thick and heavy. Inside were photos, receipts, and notes. Ethan read every page slowly, like a man drinking poison but needing to taste it. Clara outside the hospital, hair messy, eyes tired. Clara is shopping with 2 kids, a backpack on her shoulders, and Faith in her arms. Bills for heart surgery, medication, and hospital stays. A handwritten note from a preschool teacher. Faith Freeman, heart condition, must avoid strenuous activity. That last line broke him. A crayon drawing slipped from the folder, 3 stick figures, and a taller one standing far away. Underneath, in wobbly letters, "Daddy works far away." Ethan pressed the paper to his chest, tears soaking through until the ink blurred. He understood what absolute failure meant for the first time in his life. Not losing deals, not losing reputation, but losing the chance to hear someone call him Dad. He opened his laptop again, staring at the photo of Clara and the girls. The glass reflected his face hollow, empty. Behind that reflection, 3 tiny shapes seemed to stare back at him from another world, ghosts he had created with his own hands. Ethan whispered, voice breaking, "I'll fix this, whatever it takes." Though, but on the Manhattan night, only the sound of rain answered, falling steadily, like the rhythm of a lost heartbeat. Thursday noon. The first summer sunlight spilled over the small Queens neighborhood. The flickering neon sign of Murphy's Diner buzzed faintly, the air thick with the scent of pancakes and coffee. Clara Hayes moved swiftly between 10 tables, every motion practiced and precise, but her eyes drifted to the corner, to 3 empty chairs. That was where she spent her evenings, balancing her checkbook, counting every dollar for milk, medicine, and rent. She carried a tray of steaming coffee. Her fingers trembled slightly, though no one noticed. She had mastered the art of hiding exhaustion behind a smile. Then the doorbell chimed. Just a slight sound, but her whole body froze. A tall man stepped in, with a dark suit and grey tie, eyes pale blue like winter that refused to melt. Under the diner's flickering lights, he looked like he'd wandered in from another world. Clara turned away on instinct, her heartbeat slamming in her chest. No, it couldn't be him. Black coffee. No sugar. The voice came from behind her, low, familiar, and enough to stop time. She set the tray down and turned slowly. Ethan Freeman stood there. 2 years had passed. He was thinner now, his face pale, the confident fire gone from his eyes. But that gaze, the one that once made her believe in every beautiful thing, she would never mistake it. "How long has it been?" he asked quietly. "Not long enough to forget." The words escaped before she could stop them. The air thickened. A young waiter glanced over, sensed the tension, and quickly found something else to do. The hum of conversation and clinking cutlery went on, but a silence heavy as glass hung between them. "Clara," he said, voice rough, "I just need 5 minutes, please." "Ents?" "Not here," she answered, firm. "Not in front of people who don't need to know." He nodded, obedient like a man awaiting his sentence. Outside, the sunlight was sharp. She led him to the alley behind the diner, a narrow strip between brick walls and metal trash cans. He followed, stopping a few feet away. "I know everything now," he began. "About the triplets, about Faith's surgery, about how you've been working 2 jobs, about the bills you can't pay. 1. You had me followed. I needed to know the truth." Clara laughed, a brittle, wind-cut sound. "The truth? You want to hear it? Fine. The truth is, I gave birth to your 3 children alone, no painkillers, no hand to hold. The truth is, one of them almost died because her heart wasn't strong enough. And where were you? Tokyo, a boardroom. The truth is, I used that check you threw at me to save your daughter's life, and I hated myself for it." Each word struck like a blade. Ethan didn't flinch. He only nodded, eyes red. "I know, and I'm sorry." "Sorry?" she repeated bitterly. "You think 2 words can patch over 2 years of tears?" "No," he said softly. "I know I can't fix it, but I can start. I want to be part of their lives. Not because I deserve it, but because they deserve a father." She said nothing. A hot breeze carried the smell of grease and faint rain. She looked at him, the man who once worshipped freedom, standing there with empty hands. "Do you even know your children?" she asked. "Grace is terrified of thunder but pretends to be brave so her sisters don't cry. Hope loves to sing, even though she's awful at it. And Faith, she's the bravest of them all. She taught me that a broken heart can still love the whole world. Did you know that?" He bowed his head, silent. Tears fell, darkening his expensive shoes. "You want to start again?" she said, shaking angrily. "With what? Money? Gifts? Guilt?" "With time," he whispered. "With showing up. I want to learn how to be there every day, every minute, until they believe I won't leave again." Clara turned away. "I don't believe you." "Then let them decide." She gave a short, cracked laugh. "You don't understand. They don't need you. They grew up without you, and I won't let you come to teach them how to lose again." He nodded, eyes burning. "I understand, but I'm not leaving." She looked at him momentarily under the harsh light spilling through the awning. The man before her was no longer the cold CEO, only a weary soul carrying something painfully honest. "Go, Ethan," she said quietly. "Before you make this harder." He didn't argue. He placed an envelope between them. "It's not money," he said. "It's health insurance, the best kind for Faith. No signature, no name attached. Use it if you need to." She looked from the envelope to him. "You think that will make me forgive you?" "No," he said. "But it might help her breathe easier." "Yes." He turned and walked away, shoulders stiff, steps slow. Clara watched his figure fade. The wind lifted her hair, and she felt her heart ache for the first time in 2 years, not from anger, but from mourning what could have been. That night, Clara didn't sleep. She sat by the apartment window, streetlight filtering through the blinds in pale golden stripes. The 3 girls slept soundly, their breathing soft and even. The envelope sat beside her, unopened. She didn't want to owe him, didn't want to let her heart soften. But at 3 in the morning, Faith's breathing grew rough. The little girl twisted in her sleep, lips turning pale. Clara jolted up, checking the tubes and the monitors. Everything seemed fine, yet the coughs became harder. She held her daughter's hand, tears spilling. "It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here." But the doctor echoed in her mind, "If she tires easily, bring her in immediately." She looked at the envelope. 30 minutes later, Clara ran through the hospital corridor, Faith bundled in her arms. Fever high, heartbeat weak. She explained everything breathlessly, and when the nurse asked, "Insurance," she hesitated. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. Inside was a premium insurance card, no payer name, only a small note. All costs covered by private sponsor. Faith was admitted instantly. As the doctors wheeled her away, Clara sank into a chair, face in her hands. She didn't know whether she was crying out of fear or because, this time, Ethan had done the right thing quietly, without asking for redemption. At dawn, as she drifted in and out of sleep, a voice spoke softly nearby. "How is she?" That voice made her eyes snap open. Ethan stood at the end of the hallway, still in yesterday's suit, tie loosened, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. "What are you doing here?" she asked, weary but guarded. "How's Faith?" he asked instead. She stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled. "Stable, thank you." He nodded slowly. "I just needed to know she was still breathing." Silence filled the hall. From the room beyond came the steady beep of a heart monitor, 1 beat, 2, 3, like 3 tiny hearts calling out to the 2 broken ones sitting outside. Clara whispered, almost to herself, "There were nights I wished you were dead, because if you were dead, I could at least tell them their father couldn't come back. But you lived and chose not to. That's what hurts most." Ethan didn't answer. He sat in the chair beside her, keeping exactly 1 meter between them, his eyes fixed on the door ahead. "I didn't die, Clara," he said quietly. "But the best part of me did when you walked out that door. I'm just learning how to live again." She said nothing. The next morning, the doctor smiled. "She's stable." Through the glass, Faith lay awake, smiling faintly, her small hand pressing against the window. Ethan raised his palm to meet his hand on one side of the glass, hers on the other, and though the glass separated them, he felt it the first authentic touch between father and child. For a man who once believed love was a burden, that moment was nothing less than awakening. After that night in the hospital, Ethan Freeman vanished as if he'd never been there. Clara assumed he had returned to Manhattan, his world of contracts and cold numbers. She told herself that was for the best. Hope was dangerous. She didn't want it creeping in again. But a few days later, a bouquet appeared at her apartment door, soft pink sweet peas, the flowers she once told him she loved most. No card, no name, only a folded note. "I'm sorry for not being there. If you'll allow it, let me stay, even in silence." She stood there for a long time. The scent was faint, tender, like the apology itself. Tess Lopez, her friend, spotted the bouquet and raised an eyebrow. "Who's sending you flowers now? Don't tell me some diner regular's fallen for the hot triplet, Mum." Clara smiled and tucked the note away. "No one special, just someone passing by." But the man passing by was far from gone. A new bouquet appeared every week, sweet peas, daisies, and baby's breath, each with its own quiet meaning. "I'm sorry, hope, faith." No name, no clue, just rhythm steady, patient, like breathing. One rainy night, Tess stayed late to close up the diner. When she opened the back door, she saw him. A man in a long coat, standing under the drizzle, holding flowers. He set them gently by the door, about to leave. "Hey," Tess called out, half curious, half cautious. "Who are you?" Ethan turned, startled. "A friend," he said softly. "What kind of friend sends secret flowers?" "The kind who once hurt her," he answered, "and doesn't know how to be forgiven." Tess studied him under the yellow light. The sharp, powerful man from the business pages was gone. Someone worn, quiet, human, stood in his place. "Clara doesn't need flowers," she said. "She needs someone who stays." He nodded. "I know, but she's not ready to see me." Tess sighed. "Then at least, don't stay behind the door forever." He said nothing, just handed her the bouquet and walked into the rain. The next day, Clara received the flowers from Tess, stared at them a moment, and smiled faintly. Someone's learning how to speak without words. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Ethan was changing slowly, deliberately. The party stopped. The headlines faded. The icy CEO everyone feared was gone. He woke earlier each morning, walked to the park, and read books on child psychology and fatherhood. He highlighted, underlined, and took notes on how to talk to children he had never held. His assistant, Patrick, noticed the shift. "Boss, are you planning some kind of charity campaign?" Ethan smiled. "No, a promise." At night, he'd drive to Queens and park near Clara's building, watching from a respectful distance. He'd see her carrying Faith, guiding Grace and Hope home. Sometimes with Tess's help, he never went closer, just watched, like a silent guardian. One evening, it rained. Clara shared her umbrella with the girls, her own shoulders soaking wet. Ethan stepped out, instinctively wanting to help but stopped. "Don't invade their space," he whispered. "If she needs me, she'll ask." So he stood there, rain streaming down his face, watching 3 tiny figures under a faded umbrella disappear into the night. When Clara dropped the girls off at daycare one Saturday morning, the receptionist handed her a paper. "Miss Hayes, you've received a new scholarship donation. Anonymous sponsor. It covers full tuition and meals for all 3 girls until they turn 5. Clara froze. She didn't need to ask who it was. That night, she sat down and wrote a letter with no address. "If you want to make amends, stop trying to buy redemption. I don't need you to turn guilt into charity. I need you to understand that nothing you do can erase the past." She meant to send it but kept it instead, because she knew he wouldn't stop, and she was right. A week later, when Faith came in for a checkup, the hospital bill had already been paid. No name, no explanation, only a small note. "Thank you for letting her live." Clara pressed the paper to her chest, tears welling. She couldn't be angry anymore, only tired. At the same time, Ethan began therapy. In the first session, the grey-haired doctor asked, "Are you here out of guilt or love?" Ethan thought for a moment before replying, "Out of guilt, but I hope one day it becomes love." Months passed. He learned to face the past without excuses, without denial. He knew what forgiveness truly meant, starting with himself. One night, he returned late and saw a new drawing taped to Clara's door. The triplets had been coloring again, 3 stick figures and a taller one standing behind them, holding a bouquet. Below it, in shaky letters from Hope, "The flower man comes back." Ethan laughed through tears. They'd noticed him not by name, but by the flowers. The next day, he left another bouquet with a small handwritten card. "I don't know how long it will take me to reach the place where you forgive me, but I'm walking there step by step." Clara read the note, folded it gently, and placed it in a wooden box with her daughter's keepsakes. Tess asked, "Why not tear it up?" Clara answered softly, "Because maybe it's not an apology anymore. Maybe it's proof that he's learning how to stay." Oh, one morning, early autumn, Clara took Faith for a walk. At the corner, she saw Ethan sitting in his car, reading something. He didn't see her. She stopped, watching him for a long time. The man who once ran from love now sat still, afraid even to disturb the air around her. She smiled, just a little. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement that he had started to change. And deep down, she knew. Sometimes, redemption could be beautiful. If it was made from love, it finally learned how to stay. Saturday morning. The sky was clear, the sun soft and warm. Clara Hayes took her 3 little girls to the Key Food supermarket on 75th and Broadway. With a backpack on her shoulders and a shopping list, she pushed the cart while Grace and Hope debated which cereal to buy. Faith sat quietly in the cart, holding her worn-out doll. "Only what's on the list, okay?" Clara said, firm but gentle. On the other side of the store, Ethan Freeman was choosing milk. He didn't know why he'd come here that morning. Maybe it was a habit driving near Clara's neighborhood every weekend. Perhaps he just wanted to see them alive, to see the life he once ran from. He picked up a carton of organic milk, looked up, and his heart stopped. They were there, just a few meters away. To anyone else, it was an ordinary scene, a mother shopping with her kids. But to Ethan, the world shifted color. Grace walked ahead, her hair in pigtails, trying to convince her mom to buy the chocolate cereal. Hope was studying a label, lips pursed in focus. Faith sat in the cart, legs swinging gently. He couldn't breathe. For 2 years, he'd seen them only in photos, on a screen, in files. But here they were in the soft light of an ordinary morning, and he understood what real meant for the first time. Clara turned then. Their eyes met. She froze, the shopping list still in her hand. Ethan stood there clean-shaven, in a simple shirt, no tie. The look in his eyes wasn't guilt anymore, it was something quieter, heavier. Neither spoke. The noise of carts, pop music, and barcode scanners filled the air. But there was only silence between them, thick and fragile as glass. Clara looked away first. She pushed the cart forward, slower this time. Ethan stood motionless, then, as if pulled by something beyond control, followed, keeping to a parallel aisle. He didn't dare approach. He just watched, memorizing everything. Clara kneeling to tie Hope's shoe, kissing her forehead. Grace grabbed the wrong milk, then proudly corrected herself. Faith was coughing, and Clara gently wiped her mouth with a tissue. The smallest gestures routine for others were everything Ethan had ever dreamed of. He bent down, pretending to look at cereal boxes, but his vision blurred. He didn't want them to see. He didn't want to make a scene. Then a small voice spoke behind him. "Mister, you dropped this." He turned. A bright orange rolled to his feet. Hope was standing there, holding another orange, eyes wide and curious. Eyes that looked just like his at that age. Ethan crouched down, picked up the fruit, and smiled shakily. "Thank you." "You're welcome," she said, tilting her head. "Are you sad?" The question caught him off guard. His throat tightened. He nodded a little. "Maybe, just a little." "Oranges make people happy," she said, holding out the other one. "You can have it." He took it. Her small, warm hand brushed his for a second longer than 2 lost years. Clara turned, saw the scene, and her chest clenched. "Hope, come here," she said quickly. Hope ran back, leaving Ethan kneeling by the aisle, holding the orange, eyes wet. He tried to breathe, but the air was heavy. No one noticed the man in a white shirt crying beside a pile of fruit. Clara watched from a distance, saw his shoulders tremble, saw him wipe his face quietly, trying not to be seen. She told the girls, "Wait here," and walked over. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly behind him. Ethan turned, eyes red. "I didn't mean to. I didn't plan this." "Didn't plan it?" she asked. "You followed us all the way here, call that coincidence?" He smiled faintly, brokenly. "I just wanted to see them, not to interfere, I swear." She was about to scold him, but then she saw the orange in his hand, the one Hope had given, and her voice faltered. "She said oranges make people happy," Ethan murmured. "She's like you. She believes in simple things." Clara clenched her bag, steadying herself. "You can't keep appearing like this, Ethan. Do you know what would happen if they found out who you are? You'll confuse them." "I didn't tell her who I am," he said quietly. "I just wanted to be near them, even for a few minutes." "A few minutes isn't enough," she said, trembling. "They don't need a father who shows up for minutes. They need one who stays." He nodded slowly, eyes shining. "I will stay. You don't have to believe me yet. I need a chance to prove it." "How'd?" She sighed, torn between anger and exhaustion. Then Hope tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, that man's buying the same cereal as me." Clara looked. Ethan was holding the same box of chocolate cereal. She let out a soft, helpless laugh. "What a coincidence." Ethan smiled faintly. "May I pay for them? Just this once?" Clara hesitated, but when she saw Faith rubbing her tired eyes, she nodded. "Just today." At the checkout, he stood behind them. When the cashier asked, he said quietly, "We're together." The clerk nodded, scanning the items, unaware they were witnessing something sacred, a father paying, for the first time, for his children's groceries. Outside, Clara turned to him. "Thank you." He smiled, gently. "No, thank you for letting me do something small." She nodded, lifting Faith into the stroller. The girls chatted happily. "Mama, today was fun." He stood there, watching them, smiling. Then, slowly, he turned to leave before the moment could break. But as he reached the door, a tiny voice called out, "Bye, Mr. Cereal." He turned, waved, and didn't realize he was crying again. That night, back in his Manhattan apartment, Ethan placed the orange Hope had given him on his desk, beside the framed photo of the 3 girls he'd printed from that old news article. The lamplight glowed softly on the orange's skin. He touched it and whispered, "Thank you. Because of you, I know my heart is still alive." Across the city, Clara turned off the lights and tucked the girls in. In the darkness, she still saw the image of him kneeling by the oranges, crying quietly, unable to hide it. She whispered to herself, maybe he really is trying." That spring came early. Queens bloomed with rows of cherry blossoms along the street, leading to Street Agnes Preschool, where Grace, Hope, and Faith attended. It was Spring Festival Day. Parents gathered with baked goods, decorated stalls, and waited to watch their children sing. Clara woke before dawn. She tied her hair back, fastened her apron, and baked apple pies, Hope's favorite. The girls giggled in matching uniforms, practicing "You Are My Sunshine" as they twirled around the kitchen. Clara smiled, but inside was a quiet dread, a fragile fear that happiness like this could shatter without warning. Across the city, Ethan Freeman hadn't slept either. He stared at the invitation Tess had secretly sent him. Spring festival. All parents welcome. He knew he shouldn't go. Clara hadn't given permission, not once. But after months of standing outside gates, watching from a distance, dreaming of laughter he wasn't allowed to join, he couldn't stay away anymore. That morning, he wore a simple shirt, no tie. He arrived at the crowded schoolyard, clutching a small bouquet of sweet peas, the same flowers as before. People glanced his way. A few recognized the face from business magazines, but no one said anything. Then he saw them. Clara crouched to fix Faith's ribbon, sunlight spilling over her hair. The three girls ran around her, laughing, bright as spring itself. He stayed where he was, just watching. But when the performance began, Hope spotted him. Her face lit up. "Mama, Mister, cereal's here." Clara turned, and every muscle in her body froze. Ethan stood in the open, bouquet in hand, calm but heartbreakingly out of place. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, voice trembling. "I came to see them sing," he whispered. "I promise I'll stay back." "You promise?" She let out a brittle laugh. "Like the time you promised to stay before?" A few parents began to notice. The hum of conversation continued, pretending not to listen. Then the host's voice crackled through the speakers. "Next up, our three little Hayes girls, singing You Are My Sunshine." Ethan looked up. The girls stood hand in hand on the small stage, the light catching their brown gold curls. When the music started, they sang off-key, earnest, beautiful. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." The sound tore him open. Clara trembled too. That song, the same one they used to hum in the car, back when love was still easy. When the song ended, applause erupted. Ethan took a step forward, bouquet trembling in his hands. Clara blocked him. "Don't. Please, don't do this." "Just one moment," he said, eyes still on the stage. And then Hope, pure and unfiltered, pointed him out. "Mr. Cereal." "That's him, Mama." Every head turned. Flashbulbs popped. Whispers spread like wind. "Wait, is that Ethan Freeman, the CEO?" Clara's face went pale. She tried to gather her children from the stage, but it was too late. A parent asked aloud, "Is he their father?" Silence. Clara turned to Ethan, eyes blazing. "Are you happy now? Now everyone knows. Did you come for forgiveness or for pity?" "No," he said, voice breaking. "I came to tell the truth. For once in my life. You have no right." "I do," he said quietly, "because I'm their father." "Father?" She laughed through tears. "A father is there when they're sick, when they ask why Daddy never comes home. Where were you then?" He had no answer. The crowd fell completely still. Only the soft rustle of spring wind, the faint buzz of the mic. And then Ethan did the unthinkable. He fell to his knees, right there on the grass, under hundreds of eyes. His voice shook, but carried. "I'm sorry, Clara. I'm sorry for leaving you alone, for running, for taking 2 years to learn that freedom without love is just an empty cage." Clara covered her mouth, trembling. Tears streamed down her face. Ethan turned toward the stage, to the 3 small girls staring wide-eyed at him. "Grace, Hope, Faith." His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones rose into the air, cameras clicking. In minutes, the image of a powerful CEO kneeling with flowers, tears glinting in sunlight, spread across the internet. Within an hour, the headline read, "Ethan Freeman kneels before ex-lover and his 3 daughters." Thousands of shares, comments, judgment, sympathy, laughter, and then silence. Ethan disappeared from the media that night. Clara shut off her phone and closed the blinds. She sat by the window, the girls asleep, city lights spilling across her tired face. Tess knocked softly. The whole city's talking about you. Let them, Clara said quietly. I just feel sorry for him, for finally learning how to kneel. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone in his dark apartment. His phone buzzed non-stop reporters, board members, investors. He ignored them all. On his laptop screen, the video replayed repeatedly, his face bowed low, hands trembling around a bouquet. He didn't feel shame, only release. For the first time, he wasn't playing a part. He was just a man, a father, broken, late, but true. The door opened. Patrick, his loyal assistant, stepped in. Sir, the board wants to know what you'll say. The press is waiting. Ethan looked up, calm. Tell them I finally made the only right choice of my life. Patrick hesitated. You'll lose everything. Your title, the company. Ethan nodded. I already lost everything. Now I'm just trying to get back what still matters. That night, he walked through Central Park, no coat, hands bare. The air was cold, but for the first time, he felt warm. People recognized him. Some whispered, some took photos. He didn't care. At the lake, he stopped and looked down. In the reflection, he no longer saw the CEO of Freeman Capital. He saw a man with tired eyes, scarred heart but human again. If I have to start over from the bottom, he murmured, at least this time I won't be alone. The next morning, Clara found a small envelope outside her door. No money, no gifts, just a note. I'm not running anymore. If I must, I'll start from zero. All I ask is that you let me stand outside the door. Tears blurred the words as she read. She wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. But deep down, she knew, for the first time, he might truly mean it. 3 weeks after the spring festival, the air still hadn't settled. The media had moved on, but the echoes remained. When Clara Hayes walked by, people whispered at the diner, preschool, and grocery store. She had become the woman the CEO knelt before. To the world, it was a dramatic love story. To Clara, it was just an old wound torn open again. She went out less and spoke little. She didn't want questions. She didn't want pity. But children don't understand adult complexities. They only see, hear, and ask. That Tuesday morning, as Grace ate her cereal, she asked, Mama, who was that man at the festival? Everyone at school says he's our dad. Clara's spoon froze midair. She steadied her voice. People say lots of things, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. But he cried, Hope said. And he knew our names. How did he know? Maybe because he used to know, Mama. Clara answered softly. Then Faith, the smallest, spoke up, her raspy little voice firm. If he knew Mama, he must be nice. Clara smiled, sadly, brushing a strand of hair from Faith's face. Not everyone who knows Mama is nice, baby. But he cried. Faith insisted. Grown-ups don't cry like kids do. Clara froze. Yes, Ethan had cried not from pride, but from loss. When she picked the girls up from school that afternoon, a small envelope awaited in the mailbox. No name, only, for the 3 smallest girls in the world. Inside were 3 hand-drawn flowers, bright and smiling, colored with a shaky hand. At the bottom, in Ethan's familiar handwriting, I heard you sing. I'm so proud of you. If Mama ever says yes, I'd like to read you a story just once. Clara's chest tightened as she gripped the paper. She didn't know whether to be angry or to cry. That night, as the girls built towers of blocks on the floor, Clara watched them, 3 faces so different, yet bound by the same eyes and dimpled cheeks. Each one carried a piece of him. Grace sharp and strong, Hope gentle and full of empathy, Faith fragile but fierce. Clara sighed. Sooner or later, they would have to know, and she couldn't keep building walls forever. The next day, she called Tess. I think it's time they meet him, but on my terms. Tess hesitated. You sure? He wrecked your life once. I know, but they'll imagine someone worse than the truth if they never see him. If they do, at least they'll know who their father is, flaws and all. There was silence on the line. Then Tess said, Then I'm coming too, just in case you change your mind. That weekend, Prospect Park glowed under soft spring sunlight. Ethan arrived early, sitting on the same wooden bench where he'd once watched from afar. He wore a grey sweater, clutching a paper cup of coffee he couldn't drink. When Clara appeared, his breath caught. You came, he whispered. For them, she replied. 10 minutes, with me here, no more. Behind her, the girls held hands, curious, shy, hesitant. Clara sat down first, and the children were beside her. Ethan stayed a few steps away, afraid to breathe too close. He leaned forward, voice trembling. He goes. They said nothing at first. Then Hope, always the bold one, asked, "Who are you?" He swallowed, forcing a smile. Someone who went too far away, for too long. Was it fun being far away? Faith asked, tilting her head. No, he said quietly. It's lonely, because there aren't 3 little girls like you there. Hope giggled. Then you're back now? Yes, if your mama says it's okay. Clara shot him a warning glance. Talk to them normally, no speeches. He nodded, turning to Grace. You're the oldest, right? She nodded warily. I look after them. Mama works a lot. I know, he said softly. You're powerful. Grace shrugged. Strong isn't something you want to be. It's something you have to be. The words hit him like a mirror. In her eyes, he saw the same fear he'd carried his whole life of being left behind. Then Hope piped up. Do you have kids? He smiled sadly. I do. 3 girls, but I haven't met them yet. Are they like us? He nodded, eyes shining. Exactly like you. No one spoke for a while. The wind rustled the leaves, scattering soft petals at their feet. Then Faith reached out and placed her tiny hand on his. Don't be sad anymore, she said. Mama says everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after. Clara flinched. Ethan covered Faith's hand with both of his, trembling. Thank you, Faith. 10 minutes passed quickly. When Clara stood, the girls protested. Mama, can we see Mr. Ethan again, please? Clara looked at them, then at him. Next week, same place, if you're on time. He nodded, speechless. When they walked away, Ethan stayed seated, staring at his hands where Faith's small palm had rested. For the first time, he felt he wasn't standing outside their world anymore. He had taken the first step home. That night, Clara sat by the window as the girls slept. She opened the old wooden box where she kept everything: letters, pressed flowers, fragments of the past. She slipped Ethan's latest note inside and smiled faintly. Not forgiveness, but something close. The beginning of belief. November. Queens had turned crisp and gold, the streets dusted with red leaves, and the faint scent of cinnamon drifting from the bakeries along the block. Clara Hayes sat in a small cafe near her apartment, with a notebook open. On its pages were lines written neatly, bullet by bullet, precise like a contract. When Ethan walked in, she looked up calm, steady. You're on time, she said with a slight nod. You said if I were even a minute late, I'd lose my chance, he replied with a half smile, half tremor in his voice. She gestured to the seat across from her. Ethan, she began, you want to be back in their lives, but it's not simple. I can't let them get hurt again. If you're serious, there are conditions. Lou. Anything, he said instantly. She read from the notebook, her tone measured, firm, but not unkind. First, you'll meet them once a week, Sundays only. No gifts, no money, nothing but your presence. Second, you'll continue therapy at least 6 more months to make sure you know who you are and what you really want. Third, no media. You will not speak publicly about us again. I won't let my children become a headline. And finally, you will not call them your daughters before me until I believe you've earned it. Ethan listened in silence, not arguing, not flinching. When she finished, he nodded. I agree. You're not even going to think about it. No need. Everything you said is right. She arched an eyebrow. Then we start this Sunday. Same park, 10 a.m. sharp. If you're late even 1 minute, it's over. He smiled faintly. I'll be there, early if I can. Sunday came, bright and clear. Clara brought the girls to the park. Sitting on the grass with a children's book, Ethan was already there. You're prepared? She asked, surprised. He scratched his neck awkwardly. I just practiced reading so I don't mess it up. The girls ran to him, laughter spilling through the air. Hope got there first, Faith close behind, while Grace hung back a step, still cautious. Ethan sat down on the blanket and opened the book. Today I'm going to read The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Oh, Hope squealed. The one that eats everything. He laughed. Exactly that one. His voice was deep and warm, pacing carefully as he turned the pages, mimicking the little chomping sounds that made the girls giggle. From a bench nearby, Clara watched, and for the first time in years, her chest felt light. When the story ended, Faith looked up at him. Does the caterpillar really become a butterfly? He nodded. It does. It just has to be patient and believe it can change. Huh. Like you? She asked softly. The question stilled them both. Ethan looked at Clara, his eyes tender. Yes, he said quietly. Like me. That first meeting ended gently, but for Ethan, it was everything the first time he'd sat beside his children and not felt like a stranger. From then on, Sundays became sacred. He was always early, always waiting. He brought books, board games, a ball, and sometimes smooth pebbles for the girls to toss into the pond. Clara still kept her distance at first, watching, but each week her posture softened. Her smiles came easier. Once, Hope tripped and scraped her knee. Ethan rushed forward, panicked, ready to lift her, but Clara stepped in and said calmly, "Let her stand on her own." He stopped, stepped back, watched Hope wipe her tears, and grinned bravely. "You're strong," he told her. Clara glanced at him. "You should learn that true strength isn't about not crying. It's about standing up after you do." "Too." He nodded, humbled. Week by week, Ethan became part of their rhythm, not forcing, not rushing, just being there. The neighbors stopped whispering. People no longer took pictures. They saw an ordinary man spending Sunday with his daughters, reading stories, chasing kites, building paper wings. Grace tugged his sleeve one afternoon as the sun melted into orange light. "Mr. Ethan, are you scared of the dark?" He smiled. "I wasn't before, but I think I am now." "Now." "Why?" "Because when it's dark, I can't see you three." She thought momentarily, then said, "You don't have to be scared. We'll be here every Sunday." The words caught in his throat. He bent down, meeting her eyes, his own eyes, reflected in hers, pure and clear. "Thank you, Grace." From the bench, Clara blinked back tears. She realized the conditions she'd made weren't really for him. They were for herself to relearn how to trust. Winter came. Light snow drifted across the park on the last Sunday of the year. Ethan arrived carrying a small Christmas tree. He placed it in the grass and hung 3 little ornaments, each etched with a name: Grace, Hope, Faith. "This is your tree," he said softly. "Not big, but it's ours." Clara stepped closer, eyes glistening. "You did well." "I just learned from the best," he said, looking at her. The wind was sharp, but their gaze held warmth. Clara whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, but maybe I can learn not to hate you." Ethan smiled, a quiet, honest smile. "I can wait. I've waited 2 years. 6 more months won't hurt." The girls ran circles around the tiny tree, laughter ringing through the snowy park. And in that sound, light, unguarded, full of life, was a promise that broken things could be rebuilt if one only had enough patience and enough love. Winter melted away earlier than usual. Queens shimmered under soft sunlight. The last snowdrops slid off rooftops, falling like quiet seconds. In her small apartment on the 3rd floor, Clara Hayes stood before the mirror, tying her hair. Behind her, 3 little girls slept tangled in blankets, breathing gently and evenly. On the table lay a handwritten card, Ethan Freeman's familiar penmanship. "This Sunday, there's something I want to show you. No flowers, no gifts, just something I've been preparing for a year." "Oh." She read it twice, maybe 3 times. Her heart beat fast. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. Sunday. Prospect Park was alive with wildflowers. The air smelled of new earth and sunlight, the first green leaves whispering in the breeze. Clara held her daughter's hands as they walked down the familiar path. Ethan stood waiting under the old tree where they'd met all winter. He wasn't in a suit, just jeans, a rolled-up shirt, and a small wooden box in his hands. When he smiled, Clara realized she had forgotten how much she once loved that smile. "What's in the box?" Hope asked, eyes wide. "It's for you," Ethan said, opening it. Inside were 3 photographs, newborns in a hospital crib, captured years ago. Each picture had a note attached, written carefully in ink. "I wasn't there the day you were born, but I promise, from now on, I'll never miss another day." Clara looked down, silent. His voice stayed steady, but it cracked at the edges. "I sold my shares in the company," he said quietly. "I'm not the CEO anymore. I'm moving back to Queens to start over and be close to them, if you'll let me." She blinked, stunned. "You? What?" "I opened a small office, teaching community finance to students. It doesn't make much, but it lets me sleep at night." Clara said nothing for a long moment. "You gave everything up?" He nodded. "I used to think freedom meant having nothing to hold me down. Now I know real freedom is choosing to stay, and knowing who you're staying for." A warm gust swept past them. Faith ran forward and hugged his leg as if she understood. "Mr. Ethan," she said softly, "can I call you Daddy now?" Clara's breath caught. Ethan knelt, meeting her eyes, the same eyes that had haunted him every night. "Only if Mama says yes." Clara's tears fell before she could stop them. She nodded, just once. Faith's face lit up. She threw her arms around his neck. "Daddy." Oh, one word, yet it melted every winter that had ever stood between them. Hope and Grace looked at each other, then joined in, wrapping him in their tiny arms. "Daddy." The park went still. Sunlight slipped through the branches, bathing all 4 of them in gold. Clara turned away, wiping her eyes. "You lost so much to get here, Ethan." He smiled through tears. "If losing everything was the price for finding them, I'd do it again." 2 months later, the first morning of a new spring, sunlight poured through the apartment window. 4 bowls of oatmeal, 2 cups of coffee, 3 glasses of milk. The radio hummed an old country tune. Ethan flipped eggs at the stove, an apron speckled with oil. Clara poured coffee. They didn't talk much, but the silence was peaceful now, like the heartbeat of a home finally whole. The girls ran around the table, laughing. "Daddy, guess what? I get to pick the song at school today," Hope shouted. "What song?" "You Are My Sunshine." "Moshe." Ethan and Clara froze, then smiled at each other. "That song again," he whispered. She nodded. "But this time, it's different." She handed him the cup of coffee, their fingers brushing warm. "Thank you for staying, Ethan." He answered with a look no words needed. That afternoon, they walked together to the park. The girls ran ahead, laughter trailing behind like light. Clara sat on the bench, leaning against his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her, fingers interlacing. "What are you thinking?" she asked. He smiled softly. "That freedom isn't somewhere out there. It's right here in their laughter, your breath, and the peace I never knew I was missing." She closed her eyes. "Freedom without love is just running away. And love without freedom," he finished, "is a cage. But love with freedom," he looked around, at the sunlight, at her, "that's home." A warm wind swept through the grass. The paper kites they'd made that winter lifted high, chasing the fading Sunday. The girls' 3 hearts that had once nearly stopped now beat wildly across the field, their laughter stitching 2 broken lives back together. Clara whispered, "Do you know what day it is?" Ethan smiled. "The day we start again?" "No," she said, smiling through tears. "The day I finally forgive you." He squeezed her hand. "Thank you, Clara." The sunset washed their hair in gold, and there, among the noise of the city, were 5 souls, imperfect, unremarkable, utterly human, who had walked through their own hell to find a small piece of heaven. If you've stayed with this story until the end, thank you, honestly. Maybe somewhere inside each of us, there's an Ethan who once ran from love, and a Clara who had to be strong enough to heal alone. If this story made you cry, or made your heart slow down for a moment, leave a thought below. Please tell me what forgiveness means to you. And don't forget to subscribe, because there are more journeys ahead. Stories of people, loss, and how love always finds its way home. Thank you for believing that even broken hearts can learn to beat again. If someone stays long enough to